We take it to Albury-Wodonga now and a project that has you drawing a very deep breath. Australia's first aquanaut survived underwater for almost 2 weeks, living in a yellow box-like compartment around the size of a small tool shed, otherwise known as the BioSUB. This became a learning centre for students worldwide, riding a bike to generate electricity and growing algae to produce oxygen. Joining us now on land, we say hello to Lloyd Godson. Welcome to the program, Lloyd.
Yeah, g'day Judy, how are you?
Well, thank you. And more importantly, how are you after 2 weeks underwater?
Yeah, I've finally got my land legs back now, feeling good to be back on dry land and having a really good time up here.
How did it all begin, this idea of going underwater for such a long time?
It all started off, I saw this competition that was being run in the Australian Geographic Society's magazine, and they wanted some wild ideas for their journal. And I've had this sort of wild idea to live underwater for a while, and kind of started from there. I submitted a proposal to do that, grabbed their attention and just sort of grew. And by the time I had the sponsorship funding of $50,000, I had this crazy idea of living underwater with plants, doing live talks to kids from around the country.
And why did you select that location?
For a lot of reasons actually. There's a really good sort of spirit in the community there, and had a lot of businesses that got right behind it, from the dive school to the solar shop to the containers, the guys that welded this all together for me. And it was just kind of everyone that I asked or approached got right behind it and really helped me. And having sort of grown up there, I knew the area, was quite familiar with the site, had the support of the Wonga wetlands, which is adjacent to where I was submerged. And it was just sort of a pretty natural choice in the end.
So hello to everybody at Albury-Wodonga.
Yeah, they've been really great. We've had lots of visitors. We had over 100 visitors a day come out to the site when I was submerged, and they ranged from people that were there on Easter vacation, just sort of cruising through, that had heard about it from guys at the pub the night before, or from relatives that lived there and had seen it on the news. So we had lots of visitors from all over the country, and it sort of put Albury on the map, so to speak, for the Easter holidays, which was really nice.
Certainly did. You had local schools as well, and you turned your living quarters into a virtual classroom. Tell us about this.
Yeah, that was really amazing actually. I didn't expect it to turn out as well as it did, but we had a wireless internet connection. We had an antenna mounted on the roof of the habitat. I had a wireless modem down inside the habitat with me, and a waterproof laptop that was donated by a psychologist in the United States. And I was able to take phone calls on my laptop and talk to children from all over Australia, but we also had some people log in from overseas as well. Did that every day for about half an hour in the morning at 10:30, then again at 12 o'clock in the afternoon for the high school kids. And it was a really big success.
Now, you generated electricity by a bike?
Yep, that was one of the methods. We had about 13 solar panels mounted on the roof of a shipping container on the surface. That was probably the majority of the power supply came through there. I also had a pedal power generator that I built from scrap metal, and this was a way of exercising as well as putting that electricity back into the power requirements of the sub. So when I was riding, I plugged my laptop into the side of the bike and would charge up the batteries for the laptop. And I'd also use it to circulate some algae that I had down there, so that the bike was also a pump.
So how did you breathe?
Yeah, well, I had, as one of my air sources, I was experimenting with using green microalgae. So I had about 90 litres of green algae, which meant that I had to use lights 24 hours a day to keep the algae photosynthesizing. So I had to get pretty used to sleeping and doing everything with you know, big fluorescent lights, and also fans to sort of circulate the air around, and 3 submersible pumps to pump the algae. So that was something that I was experimenting with and using as a teaching tool for things like global issues, you know, how we can reduce carbon dioxide emissions. Well, inside I was breathing out carbon dioxide and trying to use these green plants to soak it up and then convert that back into oxygen through the process of photosynthesis. It wasn't entirely my air supply. I had air pumped down through a 12-volt dive compressor from the surface to supplement that as well, which was charged up through the solar panels. And I also had a petrol-driven dive compressor as a much higher capacity air supply. So there was some pretty neat little experiments going on down there.
Certainly was amazing. Now, the technology that you used is also used in space projects?
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole idea of you know, sort of generating your own air is something that they're looking at now at NASA, and other sort of space research agencies around the world, in China, in Japan and Europe as well. So although it's underwater, a lot of the same principles apply to extended space travel to places like Mars that might take 3 years to get there. So there's a lot of interest in the concepts behind it, and it was a great chance to kind of showcase some of the technologies that may be used in such missions.
How does your project compare to other projects like this around the world?
Well, this is something very unique. Firstly, it's something that's done on a very small budget. When you consider this was done with a $50,000 grant from Australian Geographic, and it's not much money when you start talking underwater habitats. I mean, it doesn't take much to sort of spend that on bits of equipment. I was lucky in that I had lots of the sponsors donate the equipment for the duration of the project. So that's probably the first key thing, is that it was done on a shoestring budget, really. The second thing is that I was trying to use algae as a breeding source, and as far as I'm aware, there's no other habitat programs that have used a viable culture of algae underwater, or even grown one for that matter of fact. There's only right now in the world, apart from the BioSUB, 3 habitats that are actually operating, and all 3 of those habitats are within 15 miles of each other off the coast of Florida. So just goes to show how unique it is in the world, this little yellow box that I created in Albury-Wodonga.
So you had a lot of support as well, getting food down into the manhole, is that right? Is that the only food you had?
Yeah, well, we're pretty unique in Albury-Wodonga in that we've got the country's best dive school as far as I'm concerned, and we have about 15 volunteer divers who throughout the 12 days volunteered their time to sit out there and at night time from 12 midnight to 8 the next morning, and just watching that little video monitor of me sleeping, and you know, they pretty much, if I had a request, they fulfilled it, and they were a really great team, worked in really well together. So, you know, there was nights where the divers were having a barbecue up on the surface together and having a fire, and, you know, cooked up a nice salmon steak and had a bottle of wine, and they thought, oh, you know, we better give some down there to Lloyd. So a diver would make an effort to have the case already. A diver would run down, put the salmon steak in the box, and put half a bottle of wine in there. And there was one night there I was sitting back with a bottle of wine and a nice freshly cooked salmon steak, still hot off the barbecue. So they definitely looked after me pretty well.
Sounds excellent, Lloyd. We look forward to your next project. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, no worries, Judy. It was nice chatting.
Thank you.